to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody. I am joined alongside my co-host and good friend, Tony Sapita. And today, the emotions are down. The clips are out. We have a take on a more in-depth analysis on the Chicago Bears loss to the L.A Rams. What went wrong and our thoughts of what we can fix it. Obviously, Matt Nagy is an easy answer, getting rid of him. But we got better ways to do it because we all know that's just not going to happen, at least within the next coming week. But before we dive into it, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Stupid Car Tray. Tired of your pizza toppings sliding, office coffee distracting you while driving, grease and other stains getting on your seat, or you're just enjoying a game on the couch and don't want to lean over? Look no further than the Stupid Car Tray. Proudly USA made, Stupid Car Tray makes your passenger seat or couch a level surface for all transportation and couch potato needs. Visit www.stupidcartray.com and use discount code J16 to get 16% off your entire order. Link in the description.
Stupid Car Tray is one of the positives that came out of today. I will say, keeping that deep dish pizza flat at my seats, like grease free, because it was dripping out the box a little, and that's okay because that's how I like it. But I was driving back from L.A Nadi's. I stress ate that pizza throughout the whole game, a large Lou classic, all to myself. And, I could have done it without Stupid Car Tray or L.A Nadi's, I will say.
So I just want to make it also clear that Tony texted me the night before that he went absolutely bonkers and took a $70 ride home from Wrigleyville that he doesn't remember taking, paid cash money for it, took it from a non-Uber. So Tony took the dangerous way of things, sent me a picture. I don't know how I'm feeling today. And then I was like, just go eat a L.A Nadi's pizza. And sure enough, Tony texted me a before and after picture. Absolutely housed. Way to go, Tony. Very proud of you.
Thank you.
So overview of quick news coming from the last couple of days. So the Bears obviously lost this past Sunday night on national television 14-34 to the L.A Rams at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Matt Nagy, after the game, claims, we like where our offense is at. We grew against the L.A Rams. Yikes. Let's get more into it. Reports have it that the Bears also hope that they don't have to start Justin Fields till week 4 against the Lions. Not very good when your organization is already planning on taking out Andy Dalton, though Andy Dalton did not play bad. We just have to put that out there. Andy Dalton did not play bad. The play calling was horrendous. There has also been no report yet on Jason Peters or Larry Borum, so our tackles are completely out of the loop right now. We are filming this at 12:24 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, August 24th. So if we post this later today and there's information about Borum and Peters, we apologize that we do not have it at this moment. There are a lot of positives and a lot of negatives from the Chicago Bears Sunday night. Let's get more into the bad. Let's start with the bad on offense, and then we'll go to the positives from the offense, just to make things seem a little better. But Tony, before we begin, anything quick from the overview from this past Sunday?
So I think people have been talking about it, but Chris Collinsworth and that kind of the broadcast staff, they've been really carrying the water of Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Because like you said, Andy Dalton didn't play bad, but it was, oh no, Matt Nagy knows exactly what he's doing here. Is he's calling, like, what was that, 13-yard out to, on 4th and 17, 4th and 15. So I think I think we're about to do, a little more blame has to be put on the coaching staff than Andy Dalton or some of these players.
So and there's no doubt that Justin Fields has more touchdowns than Andy Dalton. Justin Fields has more touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers organization as a whole right now. So just to put that clear, Justin Fields did fine. He's definitely going to be a starter by some point in this season if Andy Dalton in the Bears offense continues not to do this, because the only thing more that Justin Fields is going to be able to bring to this offense is he's going to be able to run 30 yards by himself. And I honestly think that's what's going to save the season at this point. It's not going to be throwing. It's not going to be Matt Nagy's play calling. We all know that for sure. So Matt Nagy's play calling, negative from the offense. We're going to start with negatives. Number one, obviously, was Matt Nagy's play calling. Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator again, offensive play caller this year. He gave it to Bill Lazor in the second half of last year. We'll get into that in a little bit. I'm going to get into that in a little bit about Bill Lazor, why he should be the offensive coordinator. But Andy Dalton threw the ball 38 times against the L.A. Rams, completing 27 of them. So not horrible. Better than Trevor Lawrence on the Jaguars, who only did 28 for 51. Out of those 27 completions, only one of them went for more than 15 yards. Only one on the air, more than 15 yards. Matt Nagy went 0 for 5 on 4th down against the LA Rams, twice within deep field goal range that Cairo Santos in the past has proven he can hit. Matt Nagy, one of those was on a 4th and 15. In the past, did not make it more than 9 yards in the air, was a out route to the sideline. What was the point? It was literally, we were better off punting it at that point. Stafford's first 2 passing touchdowns were deep balls. I know we're talking about the offense, what I'm getting at here. You have the fastest wide receiver room in the NFL right now. You have height, you have speed, you have hands. And Matthew Stafford's first 2 passing touchdowns out of his 3 were on deep balls where no one was around because speedy wide receivers going down the field. How do we fix it, Tony? Give me your thoughts on how the Chicago Bears fix this next week, this upcoming week against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, you make such a great point about having the fastest wide receivers. We were watching the Ravens Raiders last night. It's like, Marquise Brown's like, wow, these guys are getting open. It's like, is that what it's like to have fast receivers? And then I remember we have guys like Marquise Goodwin who run like 4.240. Obviously, that's a little exaggeration, but we have one of, if not the fastest wide receiver room in the NFL. And I know we're going against Jalen Ramsey. We're going against a good defense, but you can scheme these guys open. It's the NFL, but you can kind of run past some of these guys. If you are fast enough, there's plenty of super specific, like obviously designs, play calls you could do, like whether it's like an Ohio concept or whatever. But I think, Nick, I believe you're about to allude to it. I think we got to change up the play calling. Who's calling plays specifically? And if you want to go more into depth on that, you can.
So Tony and I are both agreeing that Bill Lazor should be calling the plays for the Chicago Bears. There's no doubt about that. And let's get into why and what Bill Lazor did in 3 games alone last year when he was calling the plays for the Chicago Bears. During the 3 4-short games last year, which was the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Texans. 4 4-short games. Apologies about that. During the 4 4-short games that Bill Lazor called last year for the Chicago Bears, the Bears averaged 400 yards of offense. You don't hear that often under Matt Nagy. 400 yards of offense and 30-plus points average per game. Per game, with Mitchell Trubisky as your quarterback. And he helped make the decision of switching up the offensive line with the Bears offensive line coach. Just those 4 games alone, the Bears scored, on average, 30-plus points and 400 yards. So you have 1,600 at least and 120 at least of your season points coming from that. Unacceptable for Matt Nagy to be like, oh, I want it back. He took play calling back over again the second time the Bears played the Packers, and that game was a loss at Soldier Field. Tony, I mean, I'm ready to go to Hallis Hall and put a sign outside saying, make Lazor call plays at this point. I'll spend the money. I don't know if Bears fans, if you want to start a movement with me and putting that out there and, making the Bears force themselves to do Bill Lazor before they lose their fan base, please let me know. But Tony, Bill Lazor, thoughts? You got to do it, right?
100%. You do. Just because if this was year 1 with Matt Nagy, it's like, you know what, first game jitters, whatever. He's trying to figure out this team. It's year 3, it's year 4. We gotta, especially he kind of had this difficulty back in Kansas City where he's great with the scripted plays. Like they drove right down the field the first drive until obviously the interception ended that. But he's great with his scripted plays. It's when he has to actually go off script and start calling plays, making adjustments based on what's happening in the game. That's where he can't figure it out. And again, I gave him a ton of leash, but it is just the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And that's what we're doing. Not us, but the royal we, expecting Matt Nagy to change what he's doing and be better, basically. So, yeah, I think we do have to go to Bill Lazor.
I couldn't agree more. I like Bill Lazor. He did great things with the Eagles and the Bengals. And you know what? He did great things for the Bears in a 4-game span. Wish we would have kept him longer in there, but Matt Nagy has to have it his way because that's the way he goes. Offensive tackles was another negative, and it's not because of their play. It's because of the fact we were on our 4th tackle on our roster by the 3rd quarter. Peters got hurt right before halftime while he was playing pretty well for a 39-year-old. He had some really strong blocks, though he got blown out of the water, the first drive of the game. Andy Dalton was under a lot of pressure, but after that, Peters was good to go. Peters ended up getting hurt because a lineman fell on his back leg. He was able to walk off, so that's a promising sign. Larry Borum, on the other hand, 5th-round pick out of Mizzou, was hurt during the 3rd quarter when he went in for Jason Peters, which forcing Elijah Wilkinson, our 4th tackle on the roster, who we signed from the Denver Broncos this past year, to play. How do we fix this situation, Tony, in regards to our tackles? I don't even know what to do. You can't fix injuries like that. But Peters is promised, but Borum definitely had the more gruesome injury. What should the Bears do in regards to their tackle situation?
Well, I wish I knew that answer. I'd be down in Hallis Hall. But You are right. It isn't something like, oh, it's, we have this great offensive line and one guy gets hurt. All right, let's just put a stopgap in. We kind of have this problem across line. Obviously, we're going to get to it, the interior line, and it looked pretty good. But I mean, I honestly, you maybe go out and sign someone. I really don't know what the answer is because like you said, it's just these weird injuries. Like Jason Peters, it was like his hamstring kind of or something, his quad, and it wasn't like he got really rolled up. Like Borum, obviously, that was more of a I don't want to say real injury, but more severe, I guess, than whatever Jason Peters was. So maybe he'll just be back, and then I don't have to come up with these solutions for Matt Nagy and the offensive line coach. But that's about all I got. Hopefully, the last thing I'll say about is hopefully, I think Chris Collinsworth actually mentioned. I know I crapped on him a little, but these backup tackles have played more because they are coming right out of preseason. So
yeah, I did hear him say that.
Maybe they'll step up. I don't know. I'm scared.
And they were prepared against the Bills to have to deal with this type of offensive line. We were very lucky to have the starting five that we actually ideally wanted out there. Obviously, Tevin Jenkins is out for a little bit longer. More to come on that. I know Kenny Games hit that a little bit more before on the last episode if you want to go see his argument about that. But I would always say that you literally during practice as the Bears offensive line, coach, offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, you are throwing Khalil Mack at Wilkinson. You are throwing Akeem Hicks at Wilkinson. You are throwing Robert Quinn, even Roquan Smith. You are putting that guy you're putting in the work during the week to make sure he is as best prepared. And this Cincinnati defense is not nearly as good. They're up and coming. There is no doubt about that. But they are not as good as the L.A. Rams, especially Aaron Donald, face to face against him. So more to come on that. Let's go to the positive a little bit, Tony. Our interior line looks pretty good. Whitehair, Mustafa, and Daniels did a great job run blocking and pass blocking to a degree for Andy Dalton. Contained Aaron Donald all the way to the fourth quarter where everyone was just gassed. And there was nothing Andy Dalton could do on the play that he was sacked. But they maintained him very well. And you put the stat up, the Rams did a fantastic job maintaining Khalil Mack as well. We'll get to that in a second. But, they contained Aaron Donald, the number one weapon on that defensive line the most, and they did a great job. Another positive is David Montgomery is an absolute animal. He's the number 2 rusher right now in the NFL after week 1. So shout out fantasy owners. We called that. Tony called it that you should definitely draft David Montgomery. And guess what? It's working out pretty well for everyone that did listen to us. So shout out to David Montgomery. He broke a bunch of tackles against the Rams, against small and big defenders. I remember there was a play. He was wrapped up in the backfield. He literally took his shoulder down, slipped under the defender, and made a 4-yard gain. You got to respect it. He carried the offense. No pun intended, but couldn't make it out to the final outcome of a win. Cole Kmet's looking like the tight end of the future. Looked awesome. Blocking, run blocking, especially run blocking, and catching overall. So, Tony, those are the positives. What is your favorite positive that I missed on? Or what do you agree more with out of the 3 listed?
I actually wanted to say the interior line, I completely agreed with. I was maybe thinking about saying it was a negative because if you watch a couple replays, you see just Aaron Donald sometimes just a quick swim move, and he's just in the backfield. But I think I mentioned I was watching the game with my dad. I mentioned to him, I was like, is Andy Dalton, like, they really haven't pressured him. It's been a nice clean pocket, and then of course that was the play he got demolished. But besides the point, so I jinxed it. My apologies, Bears fans. But it really was decent, and like you said, he won Defensive Player of the Year last year. Like that's probably the best guy we're gonna go against on the defensive line. I know everyone's good, everyone's in the NFL, but that man practices with knives. Like, if we can make it past him, we'll be good to go in the future. And last thing too is David Montgomery is an absolute beast. Bear for life. I love him. He keeps his feet moving. He falls forward, even though he's like 5'2". He just somehow can always get that extra
5'10".
He's no, 5'10". I know. He looks so small around everyone else. Always funny. And then he's the guy breaking these tackles. It's awesome.
You make a really good point. I'm happy you brought that up. That was probably the toughest defensive line besides, I believe we play the Steelers this year. That's probably the hardest defensive line. We do play the Steelers this year, by the way. That is the hardest defensive line we're probably going to face this year. And, by the middle of the season against the Steelers, injuries can happen, unfortunately, but that could be a factor. But also Peters could be back. Jenkins could be back, especially going against Watt. Who knows? So let's go to the defense really fast. Speaking of defenses, the negative. Eddie Jackson is not 2018 Eddie Jackson anymore. Was the best safety in football back then. London hit on it. Adam hit on it. Tony, you and I have talked about it. He got the bag, and he's only gotten worse since. There's players like that they get paid, and then all of a sudden they check out. They have their money. Go look at Eddie Jackson's Instagram. The guy has no problem spending money. So, I mean, we like him a lot. Eddie Jackson is literally hanging up right there next to one of my favorite autographs that is in my office area. But he is not producing right now. Absolutely ridiculous. The Bears secondary as a whole just looked bad. So Bears safety Tayshaun Gibson Sr. came out and said on film today during the Bears press conference, tough to watch film. A lot of ugly plays out there. Sometimes film isn't as bad as you thought. Today, film was that bad. So Gibson also apologizes for not touching wide receiver Van Jefferson, who went in for the touchdown because no one touched him when his knee and elbow were on the ground. He said that's never happened again while he plays in the National Football League. So shout out to him for blocking that. Tony, quick thoughts on this Bears secondary and what they have to do in order to fix this.
It is crazy because it's not, I've said it before, it's not that we got beat. It's not that they got beat on some plays, whatever. Like I can handle like, okay, that receiver made a great catch. They ran a great route. It's when it's pure just incompetence. And that's hard to say. Of course, I know these guys are professional football players, but when Cooper Kupp is 50 yards behind you because you just like didn't pass the guy off, or you didn't go, you're supposed to stay with them, whatever the situation was. And then I honestly, I give him a little break on not touching the guy when he's down. It's frustrating, but it is kind of just a little slip up. The Cooper Kupp thing then exacerbated that. That made it way worse.
It was like Chris Conte, Randall Cobb all over again.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is, I mean, obviously watch the film, you want to get better, but figuratively burn the tape, get back to work on defense. Like, just do not let this happen again. Just make sure you do the fundamentals. That's all they had to do. Yeah, they just had to do the fundamentals, stay near the guy, and maybe Cooper Kupp drops it even, but I don't know. I think they'll figure it out. I have faith in Sean Desai, but.
So if you, one way that I'm going to say that the Bears could fix this is get on the phone with Richard Sherman. I know Richard Sherman's had some problems this offseason. I saw that look. I know he's had some problems this offseason. I know that there's some questionable things about him, but he is available. He's allowed to play NFL football. Give him a call, give him a veterans minimum, let him be quiet. But the guy is much more talented than what we had out there in regards to at least our CB2. Kendall Vildor did not do horrible, but I think Richard Sherman, the experience would have been a lot more beneficial, especially on those type of plays like Cooper Kupp. He also probably would have touched Van Jefferson right away and made sure he was down. But overall, that would be my fix. But again, there's still some other cornerbacks in the market. I can't think of them off the top of my head. I apologize about that, but there is ways to do that. But you hit on Coach Desai really fast. Sorry, I just want to make – oh, okay. Coach Desai, I want to hit on really fast. He needs to get things figured out. There is no doubt about it. That looked like Chuck Pagano coaching out there. It was absolutely ridiculous. There was no pressure on Matthew Stafford except the one sack by Robert Quinn and Akeem Hicks. And, besides that, Robert Quinn was MIA. Khalil Mack was completely MIA. Looked like he didn't even want to be out there. Overall, he needs to take a lot of the blame for this mess. And I know that the safeties are taking it. I know that the defensive effort, Roquan Smith did absolutely fine. Total of, I believe he had 10 tackles, 6 of them were solo. So he looks like the Roquan Smith that we all know. But absolutely ridiculous, the pressure, that there was no pressure. And yes, the Rams have a good line. But if I'm Sean Desai, I'm just going to say what I would fix out for him is that I would be screaming at the guys that you pay I think it's almost $70 million on that defensive line, and be like, hey, you know what? Get it together. Rush the ball. You should be happy, healthy, and good to go. You should not be injured right now. Get out there. And Akeem Hicks looking absolutely insane and possessed when he's looking at the defense or the offensive line. I love that energy. But Khalil Mack needs to be a leader. Robert Quinn needs to be a leader. Hicks needs to be a leader. Absolutely disaster. Also, not having Eddie Goldman out there hurts, but also Bears haven't played with Eddie Goldman now for 17 games in a row now. So just to put that out there, what was one thing that you would have Sean Desai fix, Tony, if you could?
Well, I'm happy you asked because I thought of this while we were recording here. So last night, actually, the Ravens did a really good job of scheming a couple of their, I believe it was their nickel corner. They had a couple guys. I don't know exactly who it was. It wasn't their corners, wasn't their safety. It was an extra DB they brought on. But what they did is they kind of had them follow the motion man, and then it ended up being a stunt with their interior alignment, which not only got the guy a free rush on the quarterback, I think it ended up being a handoff. So it was on the running back. It also kind of opened up everyone else because everyone was very confused. So, I mean, I didn't think we'd have to do it this way. But if Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack just can't beat their guys one-on-one, and I'm sure they're getting double teamed too, we may have to just start doing crazy stunts, something just to get the offensive line back, because Khalil Mack is fast. It is a guy that we can and then, bring in Roquan also, who's also fast, bring a little more pressure with him. That's really all I could think of, just because, I mean, like we said, these guys, they're just not getting to the ball. They're not getting past they're one guy in the way. So that's all I got. I don't know. I'm hopeful that they got it all out. This is just a bad game.
A fluke.
Everything that could go wrong went wrong on defense. It's like, hey, this is a nice little kick in the butt. Let's figure it out. Let's come together. Khalil Mack's going to have 2 sacks next week.
Oh, whoa, against
Tony's
Joe
take.
Burrow. Oh, Tony's take, 2 sacks against the Cincinnati Bengals. We will be looking out for that take for sure. Again, the positives with Roquan Smith and Akeem Hicks. That's about it. Alec Ogletree, do not ever do an unsportsmanlike conduct taunting again. That was absolutely ridiculous. Though I will say Allen, the L.A. Rams offensive lineman, was holding on to Ogletree and talking smack. It's always who gets caught. Ogletree got caught. Don't do that again. That's something I would fix. So Bears are back at practice today. Hopefully they got them things figured out. Again, we filmed this starting at 12:24. We are ending at 12:45 p.m. Central Time. There's probably more information that's going to come out today about the injury report. We will get to that tomorrow. I have a very special guest coming on the podcast tomorrow night. We will have a tomorrow night episode, not during the day, so stay tuned for that. But Tony, thank you very much as always for joining. Always great to talk to you about the Bears. And stay tuned for Friday's episode of Tony and I. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a lot of pizza, just to say. All I got to say to that. So, Tony, thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And with that, thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joined alongside Tony Sapita, and we will see you guys next time.